All right. Let's go to the line. Donald J. Trump, welcome to the Tara Show.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good. I'm going to dive in because I've got very little time here. So please don't think me rude for doing this. I want to
that's okay.
Okay, good.
That's okay.
And we're glad to have you on the show this morning. These are all questions from my listeners. I'm going to dive in with them. This one comes from Tim. Mr. Trump, you've been a liberal most of your life. Are you conservative now? Would you call yourself a conservative? And why did you change? What life event precipitated it?
Yeah, well, I haven't been a liberal most of my life. I've had very conservative views. I've been a liberal on a couple of topics, and I've evolved. You know, Ronald Reagan was a pretty liberal person, and he became a pretty conservative person, and also became a great president, which is perhaps most important. But he was he was actually on the quite liberal side. I've had some liberal views, but you have to understand, I was also a business person. I wasn't a politician, not something I gave lots of thought to. People wouldn't ask me about liberal conservative issues. I wouldn't really talk about them for the most part because I wasn't a politician. But over the years, for instance, I'm pro-life. I'm very, very much in favor of, as an example, Common Core. Common Core has to be ended. You have to get rid of Common Core. We don't get rid of Common Core. Our education's just absolutely going down the tubes. You look at us worldwide. We have such bad ratings worldwide, and yet we spend more than anybody else. So, you know, there are so many issues. I want local education. In other words, end Common Core local education. Very, very strong on, and I always have been on the Second Amendment. I'm a member of the NRA. My sons are members of the NRA. Nobody's stronger than me on the borders. I mean, you know, that just came out in a poll today on CNN and various other polls that when it comes to safety, security, the military, the vets, the borders, there's nobody even close to me. So, and I've been very strong on all of this stuff for, you know, forever. So, you know, I've evolved in a couple of issues, but basically I've been a very conservative person.
When we only have, unfortunately, about 3 minutes left here, so I'm going to jump into this really quick. I'm going to tell you the honest-to-God truth, Donald Trump. I had decided to vote for you. I had.
Oh, wow.
I had until one thing, and you need to talk me down out of the tree on this, okay? Until the weekend you said that you could do deals with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. You said you're going to be able to get along with Pelosi, and you've always had a good relationship with her.
Okay.
That took me back a couple steps. It scared me. What did you mean? What are you talking about?
I think I can talk you back into the Trump camp. Are you ready? When I was a businessman, and you have to understand, we have to be practical. I talk about I'm a conservative, I'm a common sense conservative. You know, we have to use the word common sense. When I'm a businessman, I'm not thinking about anything. I'm thinking about building this great company, which I built. It's one of the great companies, and everybody has seen that. But you have to get along with all politicians. You have to get along if you're going to be successful. Now, you can be a sales businessman.
Wait, now, hold on. We've heard this from you, but what kind of deals are you going to cut? Are they going to be these watered-down, mushy-gushy?
No. I get it.
The kind our leadership cuts now, that's what scares us all, Donald Trump.
We're only cutting great deals. I will never cut a deal like your omnibus budget. Will they be conservative deals? Okay. There'll be conservative deals, and there'll be strong deals, and there'll be good deals, or I'm not cutting them. We'll walk in. They won't be the deal that Ryan cut 4 weeks ago on the budget, which is a horror show, which gives Obama everything he wants, including people money for Planned Parenthood, money for everything, money for the migrants coming in from Syria, money for, you know, crossing the border. I mean, the deal that they cut 4 weeks ago, you're not going to have those deals with Trump. But remember, when our founders came up with this whole brilliant idea, they meant for deals to be made. They didn't mean for, you know, for executive orders to be signed. You understand that. You're supposed to. And the ultimate example is Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan. They cut deals. No, my deals are going to be good deals. That's what I've done over my life. I've made good deals. But you're not supposed to use the executive order thing like Obama's doing because he's incapable of cutting deals. And whether it's Nancy Pelosi or anybody else, they're going to be great deals for the Republicans, for the conservatives, for us. You will be so happy with the deals. You'll be saying, this is amazing. Look, because that's what I do. I make deals. I make great deals. And that's how I built this tremendous net worth and this great company. Now, you know, I don't want to say executive order. It wasn't, whoever even heard of executive order until a couple of years ago, if you think about it, right? Obama did that because he's incapable of getting people in a room. There are so many things where we can make great deals and get the Democrats to approve them. And that's what I want to do. That's
what I want to talk to you about. And we've been able to get about 4 minutes added onto this interview. So let me ask you about this. Okay. I'm a big fan of your immigration policy.
Right. Which is the toughest.
But you lost me when
Joe Arpaio just approved.
Okay, but Explain this to me. You said they had to go. I was with you.
Right.
But then you said the good ones could come back. That sounds like touchback, where they go down to Mexico, touch home, and they all come back. That's amnesty.
Cruz, no, it's not. They have to go. Now, what's going to happen, if you look at Eisenhower, he had a they have to go also. And he was, I like Ike. That was his whole theme was, I like Ike. My theme is make America great again. They have to go. They're here illegally. They have to go. What's going to happen is you're going to start moving them out. Others are then going to leave. It's not going to like you're going to move 11 million. Others are going to leave. They have to come back through a legal process. And if they don't come back through, and by the way, many of them will never be able to come back because they aren't good. We have a lot of bad people in this country.
What is the legal process they come back through? Do they have to get in line? Or they get to come back in 6 months? Could you clarify that? Okay.
They have to, just so you understand, I want the wall and I want strong borders. Right. But I want people to come back into this country. You understand that. I mean, I want people to come into the country. But people have to come into our country legally. They have to come through a process. We're going to get them out, and the good ones, they have to come in through a process, and they have to come in legally. The one that started that was Cruz, who truly is a liar. I mean, he said all sorts of things that were so untrue. He talked about something called touchback. It's not touchback. It's something like that. I never even heard of it. That's what he said. The people have to go, and I'm the only one that says this, by the way. Everyone else says they don't have to go. They can stay, just so you know. And they're very weak on illegal immigration. They have to go. The good ones, they come back, but they have to come back legally. They have to get online. They have to go through a process. We have people that are waiting online to come into this country. One of the problems is we do things by lottery. We have to get great people into this country, not necessarily people on lottery where you pick it out of a lottery. I don't like lotteries. I think you have to get great people to come into the country. So they have to go, and they have to come back legally. They have to go through a process, not touchback or whatever they call it. They have to come back legally. Just so you know, the door, we're going to have a door on the wall. We want people to come into our country, and I think you agree with that, but they have to come into a legal process. They have to come in legally.
I hate to do this to you in 1 minute, Donald Trump, but I want to ask you real quick. Maybe you do it in 1 minute.
That's why
socialized medicine. Everybody in the audience is concerned about your previous positions. One, do you support it? Yes or no? And real quick,
I didn't have a previous position. I didn't really have a previous position. I am more against Obamacare than anybody that you've ever spoken to in your program. I'm more against Obamacare than anybody. My whole thing, Cruz says, I love Obamacare. He just goes out. He's such a liar. He goes out and he says, Trump loves Obamacare. I don't love Obamacare. I am more against Obamacare than any candidate you have ever spoken to, and I make it clear every speech and from the beginning. What I do say, however, is you're going to have a small group of people at the bottom with no money, no nothing. We cannot let them die in the streets, and we're going to have to work some kind of a program where if they're dying, if they're sick, if they're horrible, I don't think you want that. If they're horrible, where they're in like a dying condition, we have to somehow get them into a hospital, get them to a doctor.
And Donald Trump, I hate to do this. Me and you are both going to get kicked off the air right now by the national. Hang on, okay?
Only on 106.3 WORD.
ORD, the Upstate's talk station.
Donald Trump is back. Welcome back, Mr. Trump.
Good morning again.
Yes, and I'm sorry you got bunched up there against our hard break.
That's okay. It was such an interesting call, and I had to speak very quickly because we're covering all sorts of topics in about 3 minutes, so it's fine to come back. Go ahead.
Let me go back to one of the things I see on my text line a lot that people like you, but they're concerned about, okay? You said in one of those debates that socialized medicine worked in Canada, and I want to ask you, forget what Ted Cruz says your plan is. I want to hear from you. What is your plan? I know what it is because I've read it. But I want you to tell the audience, what is your plan? Okay, we're going to scrap Obamacare. What are you going to do? Is it going to be socialized? That's what people are worried about.
Right. Don't worry about it. Believe me, I'm the last person that wants that. I understand what government can do to everything. Now, it does work in certain countries fairly well. If you look at Scotland, if you look at Canada, but we have a different country, and we have a country based on states, and we have a whole different set of circumstances, and everything is so different. So it doesn't necessarily mean it works. I don't think it could work here, actually. So what our plan is, first of all, you have health care savings plans, which are great, and which, by the way, are very conservative, but I've been talking about them for a long time, where you can have healthcare savings plans where people can actually go and negotiate their deals. But what I have more important than anything is we have to get rid of the lines. The insurance companies, I'm a self-funder, which should mean a lot to your listeners because I'm the only one in the race, either side, that's self-funding. I'm putting the money into my campaign. I'm spending millions and millions of dollars already. And even though I think I spend it wisely because I'm by far in first place and I've spent less than most of the other candidates, I think almost all of them, because that's, a business ability. And that's, I think, maybe what the country needs. If you look at education as an example, we spend more than anybody and we're, in the back of the pack. So what you have to do is you have to get rid of the lines separating the states, because the states like South Carolina and New York and all the different, if insurance companies want to come in and if they want to, bid on health care, it's almost impossible for them to come into the various states. What happens is individual companies have monopolies over states. So the cost is extremely high even if you go private. And it almost got rid of, the line, you know what I'm talking about when you hear about the lines, the borders of the state. We have stronger borders for insurance companies than we do for illegal immigrants coming over the southern border. Okay. So we have to get rid of the lines. That way we get competitive bidding all over the place. Now, the problem is, the insurance companies and, who have Obama wrapped around their finger, they're making a fortune between Obamacare and keeping the lines. But the insurance companies don't want that. They would rather have a monopoly on South Carolina, as an example, than have the ability to negotiate in 50 states and all over the place. They would rather have, and I understand that because there's no competition, or very little competition. Get rid of those lines and you will have competitive bidding like you wouldn't believe. You'll have great companies. The only thing we have to do is make sure the companies are very solvent. That, we're not going to get some guy bidding and it's going to be very low, and then when you have problems, all of a sudden they don't have the money. So we have to make sure they're big companies, strong companies, and that's not a hard thing to do. That's a very little government involvement, but you understand that. We have to make sure they're good companies. But then you'll have tremendous competitive bidding. You'll have your plan. You'll have your doctors. You'll have everything that Obama promised, none of which turned out to be true. And you'll have great plans, and it'll cost much less money. The only thing on occasion I have to talk about, though, you'll still have people at the very bottom that are down and out. We can't let them die in the streets. We have to work out a deal with our hospitals, maybe through a Medicare system or something, but we have to work out a deal with our doctors to take care of some of the people. Because I know you, and I know that you're a nice person. You can't let people die in the streets, okay? And the Republicans don't. And when I make speeches, I tell people, we will still have people at the bottom, and we're not going to let them, die because they can't see a doctor.
Let me be clear about one thing, Donald Trump, though. You said the government has to cover everybody, and you're saying that this would be a small group of people. We have that with Medicaid and Medicare. Would this be a private system for everybody else, or a public system?
This would be a system where it perhaps goes through Medicare, Medicaid. This would be a system where, by the way, this is called a humane system. It's also called a common sense system. Okay, we have to do it. We don't have a choice. We have to do it. I think we have to do it. And by the way, whenever I speak in front of thousands, and I get the biggest crowds. Everybody stands up and gives me a standing ovation when I say that. This is not socialized medicine, but we still have to take care of people that are, now, you work a deal with, hospitals are not doing particularly well. You make a deal with a hospital where they take care of some of the people, a small group of people, so that instead of dying, they get some treatment. Now, we can go through existing plans, which I think we probably would do. You go through Medicare, Medicaid, you go through some of the existing programs, and you can do that. But I'm only saying the other work's so good. It's private. It's going to be great. For the small group of people that are left, we have to do something. Don't you agree with that, though, Tara?
Well, I want to make this about you this morning, sir. Talking to Donald Trump.
I mean, how can somebody say no? Let him die. I don't think so. I mean,
right, and I don't think anybody's saying that. I mean, we're going to probably. I'm sure we'll have Medicaid going forward. I'm worried about the system. My family's going to be.
There's a hardline group of maniacs that say let him die. I mean,
and I don't think anyone's accusing you of that. I just want to make sure that.
If I lost votes and if I didn't win and if I had to go with that, I wouldn't. I'd rather lose. To be honest with you.
Earlier this week, you named some people who might be Supreme Court replacement judges. Would you be willing to drop some names for a VP running mate today?
It's a little bit too early. I just want to get there first. I like to win. I know how to win. I've won a lot. I've had a great business career, and I've won a lot. And I have to tell you, I don't want to put myself in that position. I do have people in mind. I've met some very good people. Some of the people that were on the stage have been on the stage, and some of them have left, actually, not done so well. But some of the people that have been up there with me on the stage, but I will tell you, it's a little too soon. I want to get there first. We're doing really well in South Carolina, as you know. We're doing well in Nevada. I guess I just saw a poll that comes out where I'm like over 50%. We're doing great nationwide. I want to win, and I think you'll be really happy with the person that I choose, whoever that may be. I don't even know myself. It's something I don't want to focus on now because I want to get to the finish line.
This comes from Troy. Donald Trump, you said that you would replace Justice Scalia with a justice in the mold of Scalia, and you named two constitutional, strict constructionist jurists. Okay. Right. But he says, will you commit to having all the judges you appoint to the Supreme Court be in the mold of Scalia and be conservatives?
I love the mold of Scalia. I do. And, I'm pro, if you think of it, I'm pro-life. I would insist on that. I would insist on certain basic qualities for the judges. It could be that the next president, depending on what happens with this, I've been hearing, here we go again, that the Republicans are starting to crack on this whole thing with the judge, with Obama appointing a judge. And I don't know if you've been hearing it too, but I've been hearing that, the Republicans are starting to crack, like he may get the choice, that some of the Republicans are weakening. I mean, this is just ridiculous. What happened with the budget a month ago and what's happening now with this. I've just been hearing this as of last night. And, where there's smoke, there's fire. And you and I have been watching it too often where the Republicans get sent there and then they're so weak. Obama, I always say, is a horrible negotiator. The Iran deal is one of the worst deals I've ever seen. Everything he does is bad on trade, bad on everything. He's a great negotiator when it comes to the Republicans because I don't know what it is. The budget that he got approved is outrageous. Now I'm hearing that, I was hearing it would be almost impossible for him to get that through because of the Senate. But I'm now hearing that maybe he does have a chance of getting somebody through. That's not a good sign. You understand what I mean?
Right.
But depending on what happens with that, we could have 3 or 4 judges appointed during the next 4 or 5 years.
Let me ask.
Would be amazing.
I want to ask you this. We know you make great deals. But one person asked me to ask you this. A lot of people are pinning their hopes on this idea that Ronald Reagan used to be kind of a liberal and became a great conservative. 2 years into the Trump presidency, will you be described as someone who once had some liberal ideas but became a great conservative? Or no?
I believe so, yes. I've become more conservative in many ways, but I've become more conservative over a period of time. And I notice that happens to many people. They become more conservative. They see what's going on. And I was never a liberal as such. I had a couple of liberal concepts, I guess. But again, as a businessman, it was not something you really talked about. You talked about deals. You talked about building buildings. You talked about foundations and footings and sheetrock. And you didn't talk about this stuff. Now we talk about it and we go into great detail and you think about it all the time. It's much different. But, I think I will be a great conservative. I think I'll be a common sense conservative too. I think it's going to be, I know some conservatives where they can't think properly. I think I will be a great conservative, but I think it will be a conservative with common sense. Ronald Reagan wasn't a hard-line conservative. Ronald Reagan was, I don't know if you know, Ronald Reagan approved abortion bills in California.
Yeah, I know. I know before he became president, right? So
people were shocked at that. People said, "There's no way you can ever, be a conservative person." And he did a lot of things that you would not even think about that were unbelievable. And he became, he wasn't a true hard-line conservative, but he was a conservative president. He was a great president.
I want to ask you this because I asked the Cruz campaign this earlier this week. I want to ask you, too. Paul Ryan and Barack Obama are diligently working with Mitch McConnell right now to pass Obama trade and would like to have it in full force by the time the next president takes office. If it is passed by the U.S. Congress and signed by Obama, will you fight it? Or will you accept it?
Trans-Pacific?
Yes,
is that what you're
Obama trade TPP.
I will fight it. I will make sure it doesn't happen. Look, the business thing, if you look at the polls, everybody gives me the highest rating on polls, but times 3, 4, 5 times, okay, on the economy, on jobs, and all of this. This Trans-Pacific Partnership is an absolute disaster.
Why?
I've been talking about China for years. I've been talking about Japan. I've been right on all of this stuff. And we're too wedded to China. Every time they go down, we go down. And just take a look at what's happening. Look, the Trans-Pacific Partnership does not account for monetary and money manipulation, currency manipulation. That is the way they're grandmasters at that. They're like chess players. The Chinese and others, but the Chinese and Japanese, but the Chinese are grandmasters at that. We don't even have a clause in there. Now, they're not in the TPP, but they are going to be in. They will come in the future. I guarantee it's not people aren't thinking of this. We will make the deal with the nations we're talking about. China will come in through the back door at a later date. They will take it over, and they will get all of the benefits that they're not supposed to have. But the reason the deal, one of the numerous reasons the deal is no good, frankly, is, and we should make individual deals with individual countries. I mean, and we shouldn't have, a massive amount of countries. We should do individual deals with individual countries. But we have to cover monetary manipulation, currency manipulation, because what they're doing is, how China beats us is with currency manipulation. They manipulate the currency, they lower the value of their currency so much that our companies are unable to compete. And nobody knows that stuff better than me. We have so many things happening in the world of the economy, like corporate inversion, where we have companies leaving our country. Pfizer's leaving. You know that, I'm sure, very well. Yesterday you heard about.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that, Donald Trump. These companies. Two quick questions on Mexico. The companies fleeing to Mexico. Right. How are you going to get them to come back? But most importantly, how are you going to get them to want to come back?
Okay. Well, number one, we're going to lower taxes for business. We have the highest tax rate in the world. We have the highest tax rate anywhere in the world for business, and for general, we have the highest. We're lowering taxes on the middle class. We're lowering taxes on business. Pfizer's leaving because taxes are too high. Other companies are leaving because taxes are too high. They're also leaving for another reason. You know what that is? There's $2.5 trillion that's outside of the country. They can't get their money back. Some of the companies are leaving to get their money. And this is something the Democrats and the Republicans agree on. They both agree, and they can't get together because we don't have a leader, because Obama's a horrible leader. Everybody agrees that the money should come back into the country. We don't have a leader. Probably he doesn't have time because he doesn't work very hard, perhaps. But he can't get the people. You talk about a deal. You were talking about Nancy Pelosi before. Here's a deal where the Democrats agree that $2.5 trillion, it's going to be really much more than that, but $2.5 to $5 trillion should come back into the country, and we should use it. We cannot make a deal, and yet the Democrats agree it should come back in, and so do the Republicans, because we don't have the guy sitting at the top that can get people together. It's such an easy deal to make. So there are so many things like that if we had a president that was competent, that knew what he was doing, which we don't have, by the way, that knew what he was doing, we could do so many things with our economy. We have to stop these companies from leaving. Tyco, you take a look at what's going on. I mean, we have so many companies leaving now.
Real quick, Donald Trump, I want to get this in real quick, okay, just to make sure that because we're right on the edge here. You could build the wall the first day you go in because it's already been authorized by Congress. But getting Mexico to pay for it is another thing entirely. Could you tell me specifically how you're going to do that?
So now nobody else is going to do it because they're not business people. I make deals. That's what I do. I make great deals. I'm really rich because I make great deals. It's the kind of thinking that we need. So easy. We have a trade deficit with Mexico that's monster because they're much smarter than our negotiators and leaders. So Mexico makes a fortune off the United States. What the wall is peanuts compared to the cost compared to the trade deficit. We have a massive trade deficit. In other words, we lose a fortune with Mexico on trade. I'm not even including the drugs that pour over the wall, the non-existent wall. I'm not even talking about that. We have a massive trade deficit with Mexico. Look, we're losing all our companies. They're going to Mexico. Mexico is the new China. Everyone's moving to Mexico now. We're going to stop it. It's not going to happen. So Nabisco is moving to Mexico, one of their big plants, their biggest plant from Chicago. Ford is building a $2.5 billion facility. Now they're doubling down again. They're going to do more. I mean, Mexico is what they're doing. They're going to become the car capital of the world.
So what you going to use this to get them to pay for the wall?
To get Mexico, I'm going to say, you're going to pay for the wall. Look, it's the messenger. Just like I wouldn't have paid $150 billion to Iran on that stupid deal that was just made. The Iran deal is one of the worst deals I've ever seen. I would have never paid $150 billion. I would have walked from the meeting. I would have ratcheted up the sanctions, and 2 weeks later they would have come and they would have made a deal, and I wouldn't have paid 10 cents. And everyone would have said, oh, you had to pay. You don't have to pay. We have bad negotiators. We have people that don't know what they're doing. And the politicians that I'm up against, I know everyone of them, they don't know they have no idea about business. They actually, two of them came up, but Donald, how would you get Mexico to pay for the war? I said, you got to tell them it's the messenger. It's just like I would have had these hostages that are brought back so fast. They would have been back 4 years ago when we first started negotiating the deal. Did you ever see a deal take so long as this Iran deal? You would have walked. You'd say, we have to have the hostages before we even start talking to you.
Donald,
then you ratchet up, and you would have had the hostages back, not to pay $150 billion. So, look, They're politicians. They're all talk and no action, and that's why our country's going to hell, Tara.
Donald Trump, hang on. We're at a break, and unfortunately, I'm going to have to go take a commercial break. You're listening to Donald Trump. If you missed the beginning, it's going to be on the podcast at 1063 WOR.